Pope Francis was recently hospitalized in Rome due to respiratory difficulties, raising concerns about his health. As the head of the Catholic Church and a major influence on political and social affairs, his absence could lead to significant changes. Will this affect his leadership role? Is there a possibility of a future power transition? Let's take a closer look at Pope Francis' current condition and the possible implications. Realistic. Concerns have been raised over Pope Francis's capacity to continue leading the Catholic Church, even though he is 88 years old and has experienced several major health difficulties. Over the past several years, he has been involved in several falls, which have resulted in major injuries, including a cut to his face and bruising to his forearms. In 2022, he began using a wheelchair due to the severe knee discomfort he was experiencing. In light of these indications, it is becoming increasingly apparent that the Pope is experiencing physical limits, which raises concerns about his future, as well as the stability of the Church. The health of Pope Francis has been the subject of a lot of interest, particularly after he has undergone several significant surgeries in the past few years. In the year 2021, he submitted himself to surgical intervention to address diverticulitis, an illness that impacts the digestive system. Surgical intervention was performed in 2023 to treat a hernia, a painful ailment that harms the Pope's quality of life. Despite this, Pope Francis has often minimized the seriousness of his health issues while speaking in public. He has stated on several occasions that despite his late age, he is still able to carry out his responsibilities and continue to carry out his goal. Even though he has admitted in his memoirs that his body is aging, he is still in good enough condition to take on the post of Chief Executive Officer of the Catholic Church. The position that Pope Francis has taken about resignation has been one of the features of his reign that has garnered the most attention. He has made it known to the world that he has written a letter of resignation if his health precludes him from completing his duties. However, the Pope has also emphasized that resignation should be a rare choice and should not establish a regular precedent for future popes. He has stated more than once that this should be the case. The possibility that this may weaken the authority of the papacy and impair the stability of the Church is something that he is concerned about. Pope Francis has repeatedly stated that he would continue to head the Church for as long as he can fulfill his duties, even though there are rumors that he may resign shortly. This is something that he has exhibited by continuing to be actively involved in church activities, interacting with political leaders, and traveling to many countries. The health of Pope Francis is not only a subject of personal concern, rather, it has a significant influence on the whole Catholic Church around the globe. Because he is one of the most powerful religious leaders, his health has a direct impact on the governance of the Church, as well as on significant choices concerning policy and development. During his tenure as Pope, Francis has been responsible for several significant changes, particularly in areas such as social justice, environmental preservation, and assistance for those who are economically disadvantaged. He has also been quite vocal on ethical and human rights issues that are occurring all over the world. Many people are concerned that the Pope's goals and reform efforts will be derailed if his health continues to deteriorate. It would be a significant turning point in the history of the Catholic Church if Pope Francis decided to step down from his position. Traditionally, a conclave is how a council of cardinals chooses a new pope to lead the Catholic Church. This procedure will determine who will succeed him and the path that the Church will take in the future. There is no evidence to suggest that Pope Francis will step down from his position anytime soon. Nonetheless, there is rising speculation that he could do so. Several people believe that if Pope Francis were to stand down, his successor may hold different beliefs, which might have an impact on the path that the Church takes for many years to come. Pope Francis is continuing to carry out his duties with the assistance of Vatican workers and medical specialists, even though he is experiencing concerns over his health. His term has been marked by many notable initiatives, including the struggle against abuse inside the Church, the promotion of communication between different religious groups, and the pursuit of world peace. In the Catholic Church, he has been a representation of compassion, openness, and advancement throughout his life. His efforts have garnered the support of a large number of Christians all across the world, even though they have also been met with condemnation by conservative political organizations. Through his unwavering dedication and unwavering drive, Pope Francis has demonstrated that he intends to continue serving as Pope for as long as he can. Despite this, there are still concerns over his health, and many people are keeping a careful eye on the future of the Roman Catholic Church. If all of this is true, then what does it signify for the future of the Vatican? Will Pope Francis step down from his position as leader of the Catholic Church, or will he continue to steer the organization through these challenging times? During his tenure in office, he has been confronted with a great deal of opposition, both from within the Church and from without it. A heated discussion has been created as a result of his progressive ideas and calls for reform, particularly among conservative elements within the Church. Ideological disagreement. These internal differences have created tensions and raised concerns about the future of the Vatican, often overshadowing Pope Francis's leadership. As the Catholic Church faces major social changes, his modernist views continue to be a source of contention, especially between conservative and progressive branches of the Church. Pope Francis's modernist views on social issues have been a major source of disagreement within the Church throughout his pontificate. Conservative groups have been highly critical of his views on LGBTQ+ rights and the role of women in the Church. Pope Francis has publicly expressed support for LGBTQ+ couples, even speaking out to encourage tolerance and welcome for them within the Catholic community. He has also loosened some traditional barriers by affirming that all people deserve to be treated with compassion and respect, regardless of their sexual orientation. However, this has been met with strong opposition from conservative groups who believe his views undermine traditional Catholic doctrine. Tensions have risen as some priests and bishops have spoken out publicly against his statements. Some dioceses have even refused to adopt the Pope's guidelines on outreach and inclusion of the LGBTQ+ community. They argue that these views risk changing the fundamental nature of Catholic doctrine and go against centuries of church tradition. Beyond LGBTQ+, Pope Francis has also made efforts to give women more prominent roles in the Church, including leadership positions in the Vatican. He has appointed many women to positions previously reserved for men, such as secretarial positions in key Vatican departments. He has also proposed expanding the role of women in making important decisions regarding the Church. While this is a major step forward in promoting gender equality in Catholicism, it has also drawn strong opposition from some traditionalists who believe that women should not hold leadership roles in the Church according to traditional teachings. One of the most controversial issues of Pope Francis' tenure has been his handling of the clergy sex abuse scandal. He has tried to improve the situation by introducing stricter rules on accountability and transparency. In 2019, he introduced a law requiring priests and religious to report abuse and strengthened the Church's internal investigation process. He also established a special commission to combat abuse and support victims. However, these efforts have not been universally praised. Some abuse victims say the Vatican has not done enough, and some responsible bishops have not been punished adequately. Critics of Pope Francis have said he has been too lenient with some senior church leaders who have been accused of covering up or failing to handle abuse scandals seriously. Some victims and advocacy groups have called for more drastic action. such as removing bishops or priests found guilty of serious misconduct. Others say the Vatican has made important strides, but needs more time to implement comprehensive reforms. These tensions show that Pope Francis is facing one of the most challenging tenures in the history of the Catholic Church. His modernist views have won him admiration from many, but also opposition from many. This raises an important question. What direction will the Vatican take in the future? Will the changes Francis is pushing for become lasting foundations for the Church, or will there be a return to conservative traditions after he leaves office? But perhaps the problem is not only about perspective, but also about finances. Financial disagreement. Financial matters about the Vatican are a major source of disagreement within the Catholic Church under the leadership of Pope Francis. Multiple times, he has emphasized the need for accountability and transparency, and he has called for changes to be made to a financial system that has been in place for a long time. Since a long time ago, the Vatican has been subjected to criticism for its ineffective handling of its finances, and it has even been implicated in scandals involving money laundering and corruption. The attempts that Francis has made to restructure the sector have been greeted with fierce criticism from certain members of the Church who have vested interests in the present financial system. Among the most important steps that Pope Francis has taken is the formation of an independent financial watchdog. This watchdog will be responsible for monitoring transactions and ensuring that the Vatican's economic activities are transparent. Additionally, he has undertaken the task of reorganizing the Vatican Bank, an organization that has been the subject of an inquiry due to allegations of financial irregularities. Nevertheless, these modifications are not simple to implement because the Vatican's financial structure is extremely complicated and contains a great deal of covert oppositional forces. The opinions that Pope Francis holds on global concerns are also a cause of debate. In addition to the financial difficulties that are at stake, it is because he is a staunch advocate for the rights of immigrants and refugees that he finds himself in conflict with certain political leaders who adhere to conservative ideology. The previous president of the United States, Donald Trump, implemented stringent immigration policies throughout his time in office, one of which was the construction of a wall along the border with Mexico. Pope Francis spoke out against this approach, describing it as a disgrace in public. This comment instantly garnered attention from media outlets all over the world and contributed to a rise in tensions between the Vatican and the government of the United States at that time. Beyond the topic of immigration, Pope Francis has also expressed his opinions on issues such as poverty, social injustice, and climate change. When it comes to safeguarding the environment, reducing the effects of climate change, and providing assistance to people who have been impacted by natural catastrophes, he has frequently urged governments to take on a larger level of duty responsibilities. He has become one of the most prominent religious leaders on social justice as a result of these beliefs. Yet, they have also attracted hostility from some conservative elements within the Church, as well as politicians who are known for their nationalist ideals. On the other hand, conservatives are concerned that Pope Francis is bringing the Vatican into politics and globalization to an excessive degree. They contend that the Church ought to prioritize the preservation of traditional doctrines rather than participating in movements for social solidarity. The fact that he appears to undercut fundamental Catholic beliefs while simultaneously advocating progressive ideals has been condemned by several organizations. One of the most significant changes that Pope Francis has implemented is the decentralization of power inside the Vatican and the delegation of more decision-making authority to local pastors and bishops. Through the decentralization of authority to dioceses located all over the world, he believes that the Church will be able to better address the requirements of specific communities. On the other hand, the policy gives rise to worries regarding the cohesiveness of the Church. Decentralization, according to conservatives, might result in splits in the manner in which Catholic doctrines are applied, particularly about sensitive matters such as abortion, marriage between people of the same gender, and access to contraception. The question of whether or not the decisions taken by the Church on a worldwide scale are consistent is also raised when more power is given to community bishops. There is a possibility that certain dioceses may adopt a more open-minded attitude to social concerns, whilst other dioceses may take a more conservative direction. Concerns have been raised that the Catholic Church would lose the unity that it has preserved for centuries as a result of this change. Another issue that has made Pope Francis's reign difficult is the way he has handled the crises that have occurred inside the Church about sexual abuse. Critics argue that the measures are not robust enough, even though he has included additional standards regarding accountability and transparency. Some people who have survived abuse claim that the Vatican has not taken swift or effective action to punish those who have committed the abuse. Those who adhere to the conservative ideology inside the Church are concerned that a harsh approach might be detrimental to the Church's prestige. Because of this, Pope Francis is in a precarious situation because he must strike a balance between safeguarding the prestige of the Church and ensuring that victims receive justice. With all of this in mind, the most important question that still has to be answered is, what does the future hold for the Vatican? As Pope Francis continues to advocate for reform, there have been a variety of responses from both inside and outside the Church, which suggests that the path that lies ahead will not be an easy one. The subject of who will succeed him has also been a matter of intense interest. Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagle, who is considered to be a potential successor to Pope Francis, is one of the names that is being cited and discussed the most frequently. Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagle. Tagle, who was born in Manila, Philippines, in 1957, has developed into one of the most revered individuals in the Catholic Church. It didn't take long for him to establish himself as a prominent leader among the clergy, thanks to his excellent theological training, his compassion, and his acute awareness of social concerns. In particular, Tagle's ascent to prominence within the Church was accelerated once he was chosen Archbishop of Manila in the year 2011. A year later, in 2012, Pope Benedict XVI elevated him to the rank of Cardinal, so establishing his status as a cardinal within the hierarchy of the Church. The caring leadership and profound theological insights that Tagle possesses have earned him a reputation. He is well known in the Philippines for his connection to those in society who are disadvantaged, oppressed, and considered to be vulnerable. The causes of social justice, the protection of workers' rights, the fight against corruption, and the advocacy for assistance for refugees are all topics on which he does not shy away from speaking out. Tagle has communicated the idea of a church that is not just a place of prayer, but also an active agency in the cause of social justice via his acts and sermons. This church is a church that stands with those who are in need. His attitude, which is both friendly and humble, has been compared to how Pope Francis exercises leadership. Tagle has highlighted, both in his sermons and in his writings, that the Church must bear responsibility for the problems that are now plaguing the globe, which range from poverty and inequality to climate change and migration. As a result of his pastoral style, which is not just scholastic, but also profoundly practical, he has garnered the affection of a great number of believers spread over the globe. Not only does Tagle have a large amount of power in his home country of the Philippines, but he also plays a key part in the world scene. He is a member of a large number of councils and commissions inside the Vatican, and he participates in significant conversations concerning the future of the Church as a result of his membership in these bodies. In 2019, Pope Francis named Tagle to the role of prefect of the Vatican's Congregation for the Evangelization of Peoples, which is considered to be one of the most prominent positions within the Catholic Church organization. Because of his position, he can interact with a large number of Catholic communities all over the world, particularly in emerging nations, where the Church is still spreading and growing. Numerous individuals believe that the appointment is an indication that Pope Francis is preparing Tagle for further responsibility. Tagle has received several compliments from Pope Francis himself, praising him for his leadership, compassion, and dedication to social justice responsibilities. Tagle's nomination to such a significant post has prompted conjecture that he may be a viable contender to succeed the present pope. Although there has been no official statement confirming this development, Tagle's appointment has stoked speculation. Tagle, despite his considerable profile, will be confronted with a great deal of difficulty if he is elected pope. The internal divides that exist within the Catholic Church between progressive elements and those that are conservative constitute one of the most significant hurdles. Tagle, who is a supporter of the changes that Pope Francis has undertaken, may encounter criticism from traditionalists who are opposed to the expanding and inclusive orientation that Pope Francis has initiated. There are several contentious themes that Tagle will need to address, including the position of women in the Church, the acceptance of the LGBTQ+ community, and the responsibilities of the Church concerning social and political concerns. Tagle will need to find a way to strike a balance between encouraging change and keeping unity within the Church if he maintains the current road of reform that Pope Francis has been on. A large number of political and social difficulties on a worldwide scale will be something that Tagle will have to cope with, in addition to the challenges that it faces internally. Pope Francis has been very vocal on issues like as climate change, migration, and economic injustice, which has resulted in fierce clashes with conservative governments and power groups all over the world. It will be necessary for Tagle, if he is elected pope, to continue to defend the doctrines of the Church while also cultivating connections with countries and international organizations. Tagle's capacity to relate and connect with people hailing from a wide variety of cultural backgrounds is one of his many noteworthy abilities. He has the potential to make use of this talent to construct a church that is more influential on a worldwide scale, one that crosses political and cultural barriers to disseminate a message of compassion, justice, and peace. Since the choice of who will follow Pope Francis will be made during the conclave, which is a gathering in which cardinals from all around the world will vote for a new pope, no one can be certain with certainty. Cardinal Tagle, on the other hand, is unquestionably a prospective candidate and is eagerly expected by a great number of people because he possesses qualities of leadership, is acquainted with the faithful, and has a broad vision for the future of the Church. If Tagle is elected pope, it is quite probable that he will continue the road of change that Pope Francis has begun, while also working to promote a church that is humanitarian, inclusive, and influential on a worldwide scale. Tagle will continue to be one of the most prominent leaders in the Catholic world, regardless of the outcome of the upcoming conclave. His participation in the Church will be significant, and he will continue to play an important role. Could you describe the kind of leader that Cardinal Tagle would be if he were to be elected Pope? It should come as no surprise that he would continue to place a focus on social justice and charity as Pope Francis did. Cardinal Tagle's choice. Not only has Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagle had a significant influence in the field of theology, but he has also had a deep impact in the areas of leadership and the creation of bridges between other religions. He is one of the most important individuals alive in the Catholic Church today. Tagle, with his warm and welcoming nature, as well as his humanistic perspectives, has made a significant contribution to the dialogue between different religions, the advancement of spiritual education, and the development of profound compassion for those who are less fortunate. There are a lot of obstacles to overcome to become the next pope. Even though Tagle is a possible contender, the question that has to be answered is whether he will choose the conventional route or a more contemporary and reforming route. A wonderful honor, but also a very weighty obligation, is to be elevated to the position of pope. If Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagle is elected to succeed Pope Francis, he will be confronted with significant problems not just inside the church, but also on the world scene. The question of whether Tagle would continue to pursue the route of change that Pope Francis has been on, or whether he will choose to take a more conventional approach, is one of the most critical ones. It is not simple to make new reforms in an organization that is as ancient as the Catholic Church, even though Tagle is recognized for his progressive beliefs and his compassion for the poor. The Catholic Church is now dealing with a wide range of difficult and delicate topics, including the following. Women's roles in the Church are as follows. A rising number of people are advocating for a more significant role for women within the Church, particularly concerning the question of whether or not women can assume higher leadership roles or even be ordained as priests. This is a contentious issue, with some individuals calling for equality and others being worried about altering customs that have been in place for thousands of years. The Catholic Church has, for a very long time, maintained conservative views on marriage and sexuality. This also applies to regulations regarding homosexual clergy. During the tenure of Pope Francis, there have been occasional indications of openness, yet there have been no significant reforms. Tagle might be subjected to pressure to offer more explicit instructions on the matter if he is accepted as pope. Managing the issue of sexual abuse in the Church. One of the most difficult challenges that every pope must confront is the management of the controversy of sexual abuse that involves clergy being involved. Even though Pope Francis has taken decisive action to address the matter, the dilemma continues to be a significant wound in the Church. If Tagle is elected pope, he will be required to confront the matter in an open and forthright manner while maintaining a firm stance to win back the confidence of the faithful. Tagle's capacity to participate in interfaith dialogue and his respect for other religions are two of the many assets that he possesses. The connection that the Church has with other religions is being discussed. The next pope will need to be able to function as a bridge, encouraging peace and collaboration between various religions, to be successful in a world that is fraught with religious strife and division. Power in politics and the contemporary world. Another issue that any pope will confront is figuring out how to strike a balance between spiritual leadership and the power of politics on a global scale. The Church has a significant amount of influence on a wide range of worldwide concerns, ranging from the preservation of the environment to the promotion of social justice. The incoming pope will be tasked with determining how to act on these topics while maintaining a neutral stance. Tagle will undoubtedly be required to strike a balance between the implementation of progressive changes and the preservation of the Church's unity, regardless of the leadership style he chooses to employ. If he wishes to maintain the open stance that Pope Francis has taken, he would most likely encounter criticism from more conservative members of the Church. This is not going to be a simple process. It will require a lot of wisdom, patience, and commitment. What is Tagle's level of capability? It is challenging to make a prediction. The process of electing a pope, a conclave is held by the Catholic Church to pick a new leader whenever a pope passes away or resigns from his position. This event is significant because it is of a holy and hidden character and it is garnering the attention of billions of different believers all over the world. When the incumbent pope steps down from his post, cardinals from all over the globe are called to the Vatican to take part in the conclave that will take place there. Before the beginning of the election, the cardinals will have the opportunity to pray, think, and talk about the issues that the Church is now experiencing. They have the chance to think about who would be the best candidate to lead the Church in the new era, and they should make use of this opportunity. The cardinals will be entirely cut off from the rest of the world during the conclave, which will take place in the Sistine Chapel. This will ensure that the most secret information is kept confidential. They are not permitted to utilize any kind of communication, including but not limited to the internet, telephones, or email. It is customary for the cardinals to write the name of their preferred candidate on a piece of ballot paper and then deposit it inside the ballot box during each round of voting. Following that, the ballots are tallied with great care. Should a candidate obtain a minimum of 2/3 of the votes cast, then and only then will he be elected pope. If no candidate has gained the necessary number of votes, the cardinals will continue to vote until a new pope is chosen. After each round of voting, every ballot is destroyed. If the election does not produce a result, the ballot is burnt with a chemical to produce black smoke, which indicates that no new pope has been elected. To announce that the Church has a new pope, the ballot is burnt in such a way that it produces white smoke when a candidate is declared the winner. Every single person on the planet is currently concentrating their attention on St. Peter's Square, where they are waiting for the arrival of the next pope. The answer to the most important question will be posed to the new pope after the results have been confirmed. Do you accept this position? If the new pope accepts the position, he will select a nickname for himself. After that, a senior cardinal will step out onto the balcony of St. Peter's Basilica and make the following proclamation to the entire world: Habemus Papam. When the new pope arrives, he will first deliver his inaugural address as the leader of the Catholic Church, after which he will bless the whole Catholic community. Not only is the election of a pope a big occasion for the Vatican, but it also has significant repercussions for the rest of the globe. The appointment of Cardinal Tagle to the position of pope would be a momentous occasion that has the potential to bring in a new period of major change within the Catholic Church. Despite this, whoever is elected will be confronted with a significant amount of difficulties in governing an organization that has more than 3 billion members all over the world. What do you think about the future of the Church in the coming time? Please share your thoughts in the comments section below. We would love to hear from you. And don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel for more interesting updates. Thank you and see you in the next videos.